Okay, it's Saturday, August 6th, the weekend here. I just wanted to make, haven't made a trading foundation video in a while. And on this video, I just wanted to kind of point out how my particular trading philosophy centers around taking a lot of base hit trades and how that adds up over time. So I'm looking at, for example, all trades I made on Friday. There were a whole bunch. I traded AMD, Chevron, Apple, Tesla, up here, Alibaba, a whole bunch of, 5 trades in a row, pretty much 5 winning trades. I'll show you in a minute as I go through the charts that they were all, winning trades in this case. But even if they weren't, even if I have occasional break-even trades or a small loss, over time, taking many of these trades with a pretty high percentage, the base hits add up. And I guess I discovered early on, for me, I used to try to hold on to a lot of trades for big gains or home runs. But now, when I kind of know targets and I kind of know how intraday price structure develops for any given stock, I've just, and it used to be where I'd get into trades and I'd always have gains at some point, and then it's a question of, do you take trailing stops or do you go for home runs and then they turn into losses? So over time it just became a thing where I realized taking the small gains was A, it was more comfortable for me, and B, I saw how it adds up over time, and it reduces risk and everything else. So I just thought I'd make that kind of video here, and I just emphasize. I'll show you like those 5 trades on Friday, and how each of them were kind of just a small gain, and how some could have been bigger winners. But in the past, I've made videos here. This is a 15-minute chart. I happen to be looking at First Solar at the moment, but I've made videos in the past how kind of I look at multiple time frames first of all to get context. Here's like a daily chart, and here's the weekly chart and the monthly chart. So I know the monthly on this particular stock is green and heading higher with targets over here. The weekly chart, even though we had a big week, is still a little green, so the bias is up. And then each day, I've made videos in the past showing how I kind of look at the midpoint of the prior day and how I want buys to be above that midpoint and sells to be below. And then I talk about how the key for me is the 15-minute chart and how price opens that very first bar, and do you get follow through. And on the ideal days, I'm looking for one push up, pause, second push up. It doesn't always happen because sometimes there are targets that are reached, before you make that second push up. But, knowing the targets, like I said, sometimes like on this day here, when you get a 2-up day to the upside above the midpoint of the prior day, the target's right here, the high of that day. So if you look at the 15-minute chart, we kind of gapped up a little bit, paused, and then we just reached that, kind of highlighting the daily target there, and then we immediately collapsed. So if you were going to buy this stock, on a breakout of that first bar, you also have to know that you're reaching this target up here, and that that's a breakout trade, and a lot of people get trapped on those kind of trades. So the ideal trade is when you get in down here and you can scale out at those targets and then see if you continue or not. So anyway, if you would take a trade like this, I didn't trade the stock on this day, but you'd have to know that okay, it's moving up, it hit my target now. Either we fail up here or we continue, and since it failed, you'd be ready to break even very quick. If there was a little more leeway on this daily chart, I'd let it run. So some of that comes into play. I don't want to get into that here. My main thing here is just to show how base hits, or to explain, for anyone interested or depending on how you trade, maybe consider just taking small gains on high probability setups over and over again, and how that will add up over time. So if I just look at, just going over the stocks I traded on that day, like I said, Tesla, it might take a second for me to click on each chart, but Tesla was a trade. If you look at my video, I went short here right near the open, and I was able to scale out a little bit. I withstood that, and then we kind of came down. Now, I talked about how on the daily chart going 2 down after we were breaking through this low, here was the next target down here. So I was able to take profits. If you look at it on the, I'm kind of clicking on that. It was kind of on this, after this next push down, I reached that target. Of course, it went a lot lower on the day, but that's fine. And even if I didn't wait for that target on this type of trade, getting short here and then exiting somewhere as we were going red, I would have been very happy with that. I do that all the time. maybe, but there are certain times where it continues. I could have made a lot more. Other times it reverses right where I got out. So in the end, my goal is just to not worry about what happens as long as I get the high probability, small gains over and over. I don't really care if I miss bigger moves to the downside. But in this case, Tesla would have had a bigger move, but it was a nice trade getting short here and able to just kind of take profits quickly at the first target. I traded AMD. That was a type of thing where, again, you could see where the small gain was more beneficial today because I bought it here at this blue line, if you look at the prior video, and I was able to scale out most of the position right here near, the first target, which to me is yesterday's. Again, we had a big green day the day before. We bought here, and I can see that we're kind of moving up first target to that, the close of yesterday. Then it's a question, do you take out that high? Given the fact that I was able to scale out up there, then when it failed, I just exited. I took a small gain overall in this trade, and you can see ultimately it went nowhere on the day, but it was a small gain, for me, just kind of being, again, if it would have continued up here, I could have, I would have scaled out of half here and then hopefully taken some profits up above that high. But in this case, it just ended up a small gain overall, but that's fine. As opposed to trying to hold on all day and see if it reached up there, I like to take my gains. And then if it fails, I just get right out and I don't care if it continues. So just trying to point that out. Apple was a trade where I went short. This was, I remember this trade where it was kind of a gap down, a counter trend trade, but I went short here at the blue line. And I was able to just take profits somewhere as we moved to the midpoint of that first bar. I knew if that broke, we might be taking out the lows of the day. And if we took out the lows of the day, maybe we'd be reversing the day before. But it's a big uptrend. So I just was able to, on this trade, after, maybe a half hour or so, take some nice gains and this option position. And that was it. Boom. And then you could see it kind of went down. It came all the way back up. And I don't really care what happens for the rest of the day. Two more trades. Baba. That was a trade where I was playing for the lows of the day. After this big reversal, you can see here on the daily chart, big gap down. And after that, happened, I was kind of targeting the low of this bar right down here. So if you look at that on this chart, that was all the way down here. Those were those targets. But for me, I was able to buy puts here, thinking it would take out the lows of the day. And once it did that a little bit, I just took some gains here quickly, even though I would have had to wait for the rest of the day to get down there. It eventually worked there. But to me, just getting some quick gains here is all I'm looking for. High probability, another gain. So that's kind of 4 gains. And then finally, Chevron was a trade near the end of the day where I just sensed, we might make a push back to the high. So I bought it here, and I actually exited the position right around, it reached that. In this case, it was just a 1 push up, classic, orderly pause for another test of the highs. If you look at the daily chart, it was supposed to be a reversal day where you kind of moved above the halfway point of that prior day's bar, which means you could have taken out the highs of that bar. But for me, I just wanted to take profits right here at the, right at that first target, which was the intraday highs, and not really play it back all the way back up to, the other highs, because it was, it was already I already taken a whole bunch of trades, and it was just, I don't really like, normally that's another thing too. When I take 2 or 3 gains, a lot of times I'll just quit for the day and I won't even press my luck. Or if I do get into other trades, I go very small. Again, just my philosophy. I found that when I keep trading all day long after having a good start, you tend to give it back. So that's why even this trade was pretty aggressive for me in terms of, I'd already done well on the day, but I just really liked, if you look at the video, you'll see the continuity why I like the upside here. And again, I was able to just go from here up to here, not push it. Took about half hour, 15, almost 15 minutes to 30 minutes, and that was it. And then it kind of came down to the rest of the day, even below my entry point. So I just wanted to kind of make this video to show how, in addition to using the multiple time frame analysis, daily, weekly, monthly, to kind of get an idea about where things are going, where some targets are, any given day intraday, if we're, above the midpoint of a prior day, we could be heading higher to take out, that previous day's high. And if that gets taken out, and sometimes you get a 2 up type of day, which then targets the next high. Anyway, all that context, I've made some videos on that. And then I kind of look at the structure of the open, and I get a feeling for if we're, generally, I'm looking for a strong, for buys, a strong open, getting above, that first 15-minute bar, getting long, and then kind of seeing what targets are in play. And if we have a good day, we're going to get a good push up, pause, and another push up. But in many cases, we're just targeting, depending on the daily chart, some other areas. So, and then I've made videos on that, but the main thing I wanted to point out, this was a classic example of just a bunch of trades. You add it all up, and in time, these small wins, these base hits really do add up. So it's something anyone might want to consider. It's comfortable for me, and again, just thought I'd make a video pointing out just this element of my trading plan.